My name is Shaun and I ran the 2025 London Marathon. So I've been running on and off for a couple of years, but it's only really been probably the past year and a half that I really got into running. It was always, I struggled with consistency before that. I'd start running and then I'd have days where I couldn't be bothered, or it was cold, it was raining, and I'd give up and go, I'll leave it and get out of the rhythm. So I think the very first thing is just a weird ambition of wanting to do it. I think that's then changed over the past couple of years and now months and weeks. So originally it was seeing other people doing it year on year and thinking it'd be a cool experience to do. And then that's definitely changed over the past couple of years as I've more fell in love with running. That it's more just an ambition to be able to complete a marathon because I like running so much rather than just a weird for no reason. And then even more so then in the past year to be able to raise money for a great charity. But it was probably ever since my first race in March 2024 that really got into it and then really focused on running more consistently. I've always been quite sporty from a young age, playing football when I was younger, playing cricket and still do to this day. So always in sports teams at school. So I have quite a big sport background, but usually team sports, never really anything like a solo sport. This is kind of the first time that I've really got into doing something by myself. I chose Mind because several times through my life I've struggled mentally with various different things, mainly stress and anxiety are the two main ones. And so they have stuff on their website which is really helpful, and I just thought it'd be a great charity to run for, and especially as running has become one of the things that has helped with my mental health, that helps me to manage it, that I thought is a great way to combine the two of doing a running challenge for a charity to help with mental health. When I first started running, it was just winging it, just going out, trying to run as fast as I can, and ultimately blowing up immediately. Then started to get a bit more, because I'd happily walk for a bit and do basically intervals, but just on my own. And then it wasn't until I got my marathon place that I got a plan, which is one online, a guy called Ben Parks who makes content and is brilliant. So I used a plan for my first half marathon through him, and that's what I've been following for the marathon as well. Thankfully I've not sacrificed too much, and I've said that from the start that I wasn't going to completely stop everything. I've still enjoyed things, I've still gone out and had fun, I've celebrated birthdays, that sort of thing. But yeah, those weekend mornings, I'll be looking forward to get those back. So the document was two reasons. One, I wanted to have things to look back on afterwards, after I finished, and to see. And then also just to be able to track the journey more, to see the improvements that I was making. And because that's one thing I struggle with as well, is you do something and you don't necessarily see how far you've come, but being able to document everything, I can look back and see physical changes to myself and obviously the data behind it of how much I've progressed over that time. The best has been like the support that I've got from it. Friends that are saying to me that they've watched the videos and enjoyed them. I've met some great people on TikTok from where I put them as well that now talk to pretty much every day. That's been great for that. The community around it and the support from everyone has been incredible. The worst part is having to sometimes decide between having a good session and making the content, or not, or finding a bit of a burden that sometimes you just want to go out for the run and just do the run, but I know I need to document it as well, and having to keep that going, that when sometimes I really don't, or would rather not doing it, but knowing that I should, to have all the videos behind it and all the and be able to document it. Quite a bit of time that it takes to do all the videos, partly from having to think ahead of what I want to put in the videos. So thankfully a lot of it, especially since starting the training blog, has been, this is just describing the session I'm doing, but obviously getting around that as well. I've tried to also get a bit creative with things, try and do some different ways. So the thought process does The filming doesn't really add much extra time because a lot of it I do whilst out on my runs, so that time is already taken up by doing the run, and then a bit of time for the editing afterwards and make sure it's okay. So it does add to it. It's been a lot more work than I probably have needed to put on myself for training. That it does all add up. Thinking I'm not going to complete it is probably a daily occurrence. There's been a few moments, or bigger moments, I think. Definitely. One of them was I went on holiday and I said to myself I was going to run while I was out there, and I didn't. And not so much of it in that moment saying I wasn't going to finish it, but then the pressure afterwards of thinking, okay, where do I go from here? Like, I've lost a week of training. How do I adjust from this? That adds the stress to that. And then I think the main one has been on my longest run that I did. It was the first time in a very long time that I had to walk during a run. Then having that feeling of, if I'm having to walk now and it's not even the marathon distance, how am I going to finish it? And then hitting the taper as everyone does, feeling like I've not done enough and feeling like I could have done more. So the thoughts are always there, that the worry is always there, but it's definitely managed in different ways. But thankfully as well, in those moments where I've had that down moment of, am I going to do it? It weirdly seems to work out that like my next run then seems to get rid of those worries for a bit. I normally have a really good session afterwards, or have a race or something that then makes me realise actually I've still got that fitness. I have been working a lot and we should be able to do it. The 5k every day in December. Well, that was a difficult month, let's say that. It was one of those where I had this gap in my training that I'd done a half marathon in October, another one in November, and I know I had this gap in December before the training block specifically for the marathon was starting. So I came up with this idea of I was going to run 5k every day. I thought, brilliant, I can run a 5k quite comfortably at this point, so that should be fine. And then I worked out how far that would be over the 31 days and realised it was going to be a lot of work. And it started off okay. Obviously, my legs were still quite fresh, just with a lot of fatigue. And then those last 2 days were two of the worst runs I've ever had to do in my life, as I'd gotten ill over the Christmas period and was quite badly ill and still forced myself to go out. So struggling to breathe, legs feeling really tired, definitely made it a lot more of a challenge than it should have been. It was nice to commit to it for the whole month though, as it was definitely something that, or I think now, can help build up that mental resilience that I'll need. Whereas before, I'd do a run and if I was feeling tired, I could quite happily just sit out that next day or the next session. Committing to going every day has definitely helped build up that resilience. So if I'm out on a run and I feel like I'm tiring, to keep going, or if I wake up one day and decide I don't want to do this session or not feeling it, that actually I can do it, I can still get out the door and get the run done. So the training has helped in other ways. Like, I think a lot more about what I eat, when I eat, and hydration. They've probably been the biggest ones. Knowing properly how to fuel my body when I need to eat, how those things affect my body and how I feel with that. Having alcohol the day before a run, really feeling that afterwards and the effects of that on my body. And hydration, of actually realising how much I need to drink, what I need to take on board to protect my body more than anything. Whereas before, I'd put it down as, oh, I was just having a headache that day. Now it's easier to know the signs of, actually I'm not hydrating enough, I'm not fueling enough, and can put that into every day and tuning into my body a lot more of how it feels and what's affecting that. So trying to fit training around a job has been a bit difficult, but thankfully I'm someone who likes a routine anyway, just generally in my life. So my plan fits in quite well that Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't do anything on evening after work anyway. So I know I can get in the door from work, go straight out, and then I've got the rest of the evening to do nothing. And my weekends, I just make sure I'm out the door nice and early, so I can get back and still enjoy the rest of my life. But again, that does changes. The midweek sessions are hard, as fueling's harder if I'm at work and I can't get the fuel I need on board before a run. The same with the weekends, getting up early. It means getting up earlier than actually going for a run to make sure I'm properly fueled and everything. But thankfully, so being someone who likes a routine, I was able to set that up nice and early, and then it makes me feel worse not sticking to it anyway, as that then makes me spiral if I've gone off a plan. The actual plan itself has certain days. I've moved it slightly to fit in with my life, but it's always, or pretty much been a set day of a Tuesday session, a Thursday session, and then a Saturday or a Sunday, usually a Sunday. So there's changes between that for like race days if I have a bit more fatigue, but it's mainly been set out on the same days. I do the same sort of session, so start the week with the easy session, a quality speed session is then on the Thursday, and then the long run at the weekend. Training on my own has been difficult at times. The shorter runs not so much, as I was already used to that. Going out doing up to an hour is pretty normal. I don't mind that. When the long runs were getting long, that was difficult. Being out for 2-3+ hours on my own, it was sometimes were horrible conditions in wind and rain, was difficult. And again, something that I'm still thankful that I did, because it helps build up that mental resilience. Thankfully, even though it is very much a solo sport, I've had people as well to lean on or talk to, and then also some people who have joined me for portions of runs or just on runs as well at certain times, that having that person there as well has really helped. So even though the achievement's individual and my own running's individual, I still have people around that helps it not be so much individual. Since getting Marathon Place, I've done 4 races altogether. 3 of them were half marathons, and 1 was only 7 miles, and that included my very first half marathon. So that was October 2024, which is the Great Eastern Run. I then followed up with another half marathon a month later, which I didn't have planned originally. I only booked it 2 or 3 weeks out from the race as something just to keep me going. I then put a 7-miler in March of this year, which was it was the first race I ever did a year previously, and I wanted to do it again, mainly as a benchmark to see how my fitness had grown. It was the first real direct comparison I could have in like-for-like conditions and distance. And then I did another half marathon just a few weeks ago as a aim to test out my marathon race pace over a longer distance and in that setting. First half marathon went so much better than I ever thought. I went into it planning to try and finish in under 2 hours, and then I had a secondary goal, which was my brother had ran that same race probably 7 years before and did 1 hour and 52 without really doing any specific running training. I didn't think I'd get there. I remember having a conversation with him the week before, jokingly saying about this time that he had and going, I'm going to get nowhere near it, because I didn't think I would. And I went out on that day and beat his time by 2 minutes and got my 1 hour 50. That second half marathon, I don't really count. It was the worst weather conditions I've ever, I think, just been in rather than just running. It was the weekend of a storm. It was around Silverstone. It was so much that they didn't even have any of their event village stuff up because the weather was so bad. 50-mile-an-hour gusts, raining the entire time, freezing cold. So that didn't. But even despite that, I was still able to keep around that same pace as that first half marathon. So there's some positives to take from it. The 7-miler is my favourite race of all of them. I say it was the first race that I ever did a year previously, and went back and did it again. And it was just coming off that gap in my training on a holiday, where I then went into that race and was able to pull out a 5k PB, a 10k PB, and knock 7 minutes off that time from last year, with that 10k PB being 3 minutes faster than my previous personal best in the distance. And that was kind of the moment where it really clicked of going, oh, I can do this. Seeing how far the training had come over the past how many months since I got my place, that was a huge moment of having that race to then realise how well everything had going and how much I'd actually improved, and that all the effort and time put in was worth it. And then this final race, the half marathon that I did, was great. It went entirely to plan. The whole idea was to do the entire thing at marathon pace to make sure that I could carry that pace through at least that half marathon distance without getting too tired, and that worked well. It was a new experience. So it's the first time I'd really done extensive run on more trails rather than roads, and with elevation changes. But obviously, despite all of that, and not really being prepared for it, I was still able to keep that marathon pace. So again, that was really a good booster, ready to go into the marathon, that I could do that pace over conditions which I weren't actually prepared for. My penultimate run was this morning, just a nice easy 5.5 kilometres. Probably do a similar again on the Thursday, and then that'll be it. Keep it nice and light. There'll be a bit of having to walk around the few days before, but I'm going to try and keep that to a minimum wherever possible. And the day itself is getting up nice and early, getting to the start nice and early. Starting at 10, which is a bit later than I usually start my runs, but it's similar to other races I've done, so I've prepared for the time. And then it's trying to keep nerves down, trying to keep heart rate down as much as possible before starting. And then, so the plan, the goal that I have, well, my A goal is a 3:45 marathon, which is ambitious. I'm aware it's ambitious. And if I'm honest, sat here right now, I don't see how I'm able to do that. I don't think the training's gone well enough. Because the idea was to push myself in the training. I think it was a bit too much. But the plan is still to go out at the pace for that. The big goal is 4 hours. So I'm trying to be somewhere in between those two, is I think where I'll end up. So there's a few people I've spoken to that are also running it. There's a nice community on TikTok that all of us become, or a few of us become friends with. There's a few of those doing that. There's someone I went to school with who's running the race as well. So I know other people doing it. Hopefully be able to have a chance to see them either before or after. Should be quite good to be able to share that with some people, like share that experience and the feeling afterwards. Success would be finishing it for a start. Like that's the main goal. Although the A1 is a 3:45. The main one is to finish the race. That's what I set out to do from the start, was to get a place in the marathon and cross the finish line. That's what I'd be happy with. The other two are unnecessary stresses I put on myself and targets that I think I could achieve. But for me, that success is just crossing that finish line. The start line after some less than that. Ill sleep last night, only 3 hours from nerves and excitement. But at the start, lovely weather, it was a bit too warm, but hopefully be a good day and get the time we want. Start in the marathon 2025. Let's go. First 5k done, just slower than that 3:45 pace. Actually big comfortable with at the start, keeping us steady, pretty good. Just past the 10k, don't even know if it can be heard, so the noise, still feeling good, probably set a little bit quick. Let's go. Finish time was 4 hours 21 minutes. Mixed feelings. So obviously wanted faster, but so the conditions weren't there for that. It was ridiculously hot, so difficult to cool down, even with pouring water, ice, everything, going through the showers. It's just so hot. And then in hindsight, stupidly went off too fast, went off at the pace that I wanted to do for the quicker time. But shouldn't have done it in the conditions how hot it is. So I've been annoyed myself for that, but say to do that time, I'm still incredibly happy, and to finish, said that getting across the finish line was the main thing, and doing that, so I'll take 4 hours 21. The start was good, probably like say the first half, pretty much like a run of two halves, I'd say. The first half felt really good. It was a bit warm, obviously, or quite warm from the start. We was starting to sweat before we even started running. But yeah, especially that like first 5k, real nice. Got into rhythm quite early, and a lot of it's downhill, which helps a bit. So yeah, felt really good through 5 and 10. 10k is when you get to like Cutty Sark area, so the crowds really start building up there. That was quite good. And then, yeah, it felt really good for the next 10k. Got across London Bridge and could feel myself starting to tire a bit. So I had these caffeine shoes that I had with me. The plan was to use them later on when they started to go. I remember I took it over at the end of Tower Bridge, and usually I can feel them kicking in quite quickly and just nothing. And then, yeah, got to Canary Wharf, probably just over 25k in, and just kind of thought I ended up having to stop, or like having to start walking. And then for the rest of it was a tough slog of splits of running and walking. And then the heat just really got, by the point it's like getting to the highest part of the day, that trying to keep cool was like impossible. Like, they had the showers out, there was water stations, ice stations, everything, but even going and using those, you'd heat up like immediately after. So like the heat definitely played a huge part. And yeah, that especially that last 10k in the heat when really tired was really tough. The day before was probably less than ideal. Those who say to try and keep your steps lower during the day, which I kind of had in my head. But we also had a friend whose birthday it was that weekend. So some of them had come down on the Saturday, and we went and met them for lunch. There ended up a party for that friend whose birthday it was. So even though I wasn't drinking or anything, and it wasn't even the latest of nights, probably got back to the hotel probably around 11:30, midnight-ish, which I wouldn't expect to be asleep by then anyway. It's probably less than ideal, and did a few more steps than I think I was hoping to. But that night before was horrendous. Really struggling to sleep. I think only got about 3.5, 4 hours sleep that night, just from continuously waking up through a mix of nerves and excitement. So the prep in the Philips 4 wasn't the best. That definitely could have been a lot better. It probably would have helped. So initially waking up, a lot of nerves, but it's one of those where I have a routine for kind of all my runs that are very similar, of eating, drinking, getting everything ready, putting stuff on in the same order, make sure like last checks and everything. So once I start getting into that rhythm, the nerves kind of go a bit then, and obviously settle a bit more. So that's quite nice to having that routine. They help settle that nerves a bit. And then getting on the train to get to the start line. So it was really nice. Even though it was crowded, it was nice having other people around that, doing the same thing. Also nervous, just chatting in general about how many other marathons done before, how many times in London before. That sort of thing was just a really good atmosphere. And then the walk up to Greenwich Park again, exactly the same. Like, so many people just chatting, and like the vibe was really good. So yeah, it was kind of like once I'd started getting into that routine and got out the door, like the nerves kind of went, and felt quite calm and just in that space of ready to go. But it's like once drop the bag off, it kind of turns more into excitement, and because you're waiting around quite a bit for the start, that you kind of just want to get going, and you feel like you stood around for the time goes quick, but at the same time you feel like you stood around for ages just because you want to get going. As you move out of the big area where everyone is waiting to get into their pen, finally get a signal back, and so my phone started going off with people sending messages just like saying good luck and everything, and it was kind of like more that than the actual like start klaxon that like, the emotions start coming through, because it was especially people like I had family and friends there down in London, which obviously I knew with everybody's people who like I kind of didn't expect. They sent a message that morning saying like good luck and everything. That then kind of got to me a bit, but again, one of those ones. So that happened. I think it was all because it came through at once rather than because they were able to drip through those. So kind of kicked in, but then very quickly back into a focus of say cross that start line, and once those few steps over that start line, starting again or starting the run, yeah, really able back in, focused and settled down. The toughest part was definitely Canary Wharf. People say, or a lot of people have said or saw before, that was the tough part of it. Yeah, I really get that. I think it used to be worse. Like people said before that you don't really get crowds there, but said the crowds definitely weren't the issue. It was, I think, just that point of the race. So from setting off too fast, even though it was like the pace I planned to go off at, with how the training went, it was too fast of a pace, and with the heat as well. Yeah, that was kind of like the area the strength in my legs kind of went. That's when that pain started coming in. Once you've got round most of the Isle of Dogs into Canary Wharf, you're then surrounded by so many buildings and so many people. It's so hot round there. That's probably the main bit where it's hardest to keep cool, because even though you have the tall buildings, you don't really have the shade still, and all the heat just gets trapped in. Everything just kind of culminates there when it starts to hurt, and even though you know you're on your way back into central London, it's still such a long way to go, so you have that in your head as well, that everything just kind of comes together in that one place and just makes it hard, and you've really got to like dig deep from there to get through. Thankfully, I was injury free for all of it. It was definitely more, say, about 25k in. The legs started to go more from a lack of strength point of view, of probably not doing enough longer runs or going long on the runs and doing enough strength work just to build up that strength. Mainly like my quads and my hamstrings, they were the things that went. I think in my long runs as well, not doing enough time at marathon pace as well to get used to having running at that pace for that long. Everything was a lot slower. So not injuries, but definitely it was a weakness point that is my legs, the strength of my legs that went, rather than anything else, rather than injury or struggling to breathe, like cardiovascular system going. It was, said, that leg strength part of it. The crowd was unbelievable. I thought it'd be good, because even just like on a local race I've done, like it was good there, and how much that boosts you. I wasn't ready for how good it was. Probably the first couple of kilometres are a bit thin on people, just because, yeah, not really a great place that people want to be. It's kind of like difficult to then get to somewhere else. Probably after that first 5k mark, you get a lot of like too deep from the barrier. After Cutty Sark, everywhere is just absolutely packed. Like people continuously making noise, shouting people's names and everything. I couldn't believe how many people who obviously didn't know me would like shout my name out to give encouragement. That was such a huge boost. I'd probably guess there was at least 100 different people that done that wouldn't have known who I was beforehand and just read it off a version. That was incredible. I'll probably say the last 10k is the best, just because of how crowded it is, how many people deep there are. Then that's where you get as well as you're coming around Embankment, where all the charities have their like spots as well, so there's so many people there as well. So even though that was difficult when I was having to do the running and walking part of the race, that last 10k, the crowds were incredible. And I'd probably say after you go in a tunnel at Canary Wharf, I probably didn't hear anything through my headphones for the entire rest of the race of how loud the crowd was. Like, so all I could hear was that. I had music playing, but I couldn't tell you a single song that played during that final part of the race. It wasn't until later on in the race that I actually saw anybody. My parents saw me in the first half of the race, but I didn't see them. And it was coming back. There's two parts. One is coming back literally where my hotel I was staying at was. My girlfriend and some of her friends from uni were there. And I knew roughly where they were. And it was slightly thinner there, the crowd. And able to see them, that was a big boost. And kind of, I got to have a bit of mental relief as well, as they're all photographers, so one of them had a camera out, and they're on the left-hand side of the course, and it just happened that's where a shower was. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll run over that side, I can see them. And just as the camera lifts to point up, I forget about the shower, and it's just come straight in my face. I haven't seen a picture or anything, but I imagine that would be quite fun to look at. But yeah, it was just perfect timing that I kind of forgot what was in front of me, because I was seeing like these friends, and then the water hit my face just took me by surprise. But then, say, a bit of like comedic relief that I was able to just think about that for a bit. And then probably a couple of kilometres down the road, another friend, I just hit a point where I felt like I needed to walk again. And literally just as I started to walk, I just hear this shout from my right-hand side from this friend just shouting, it's like, come on, you can do it. And I was like, well, I can't walk now. And just had to get back to running again. Even though it was tough, there was never a point where I wasn't finishing. So the only way I wasn't finishing is if I physically couldn't walk, if like the heat got too much and I passed out everything. Other than that, I was getting across that finish line. The relief of that's it probably didn't come until the main bit until I saw Buckingham Palace and you make that right hand turn when you hit the 42 kilometres, 26 miles, and you have that last like 200 metres or so. on that bend, that's the main bit, because even turning off from House of Parliament, it's like a slow downhill through Birdcage Walk, even though like, you're in the last kilometre, which usually at that point you kind of like get those feelings. That was still quite tough still, because it's a long straight walk. But yeah, turning at Buckingham Palace, you seeing Buckingham Palace, and then we can see the finish line. It's just that last like 200 metres where you really get that, done it, definitely gonna make it, and you kind of like relax a bit more and go, you just got max like a minute of pain left, and then you're done. Crossing the finish line was just a big relief feeling I can't describe. Just like so much joy and relief, and like just that sense of achievement of doing something is incredible. Like, and just I don't like from then stopping running, walking, just a mix. Like I think I just had a massive smile on my face. I think, and like collecting the medal and everything, and then after getting the medal was kind of like when everything starts to come back to reality a bit, and like all the emotions that you like aren't really expressing while you're running kind of like come flooding through. Yeah, I can't really describe that feeling. It's like nothing I've ever really felt before. So the rest of the day, so I met family and friends at the finish, and we kind of just stood there talking for quite a while actually. I think it must have been like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours sort of thing, just stood talking. Then after that it was just getting back to the hotel, freshening up, getting food, and just relaxing, like trying to walk around a bit. So I had a bit of a walk to be able to get to a tube stop to get back to the hotel, which I think helped a bit. So yeah, a mix of trying to relax but also slowly walk and keep the legs moving, and just taking on so much fluid and as much food as I can. It took until the Thursday to be able to walk downstairs properly again. Walking on level ground was fine, and upstairs wasn't too bad. It was, say, downstairs was the worst part, and yeah, it took until Thursday until I was fully pain-free. Feelings afterwards, they've changed over the weeks. Initially, like, straight over the line, it was very much two things at the same time of really happy that I'd finished, so you're a bit disappointed with the time, as it was, say, 21 minutes slower than my B goal. I had really two opposite things at the same time. Then kind of, with a few days, probably like a week after, there was a bit of a seeing other people talking about it, how they handled the conditions, weather and everything, that there seemed to be quite a common theme that people were between 20 to 30 minutes slower than what they thought they were going to do. So it was the disappointment kind of went a bit of going, okay, that kind of makes sense. And not that I wanted to have excuses, because there's definitely stuff I need to work on, but it gives a bit more of a not allow yourself to be so down and upset with being slower than what I thought I was going to be. And then that determination kicks in of going, I know I can do better, I want to do better. How do we plan for that? What are we going to then target to go for the next race? Where we're going to go for that to try and do better and get that time we want. And then it's only been probably in the past couple of days that I've kind of come to the realization that in a way I'm kind of happy that it didn't go to plan. Because up until now I've had race plans and they've kind of gone how I expected them to. I hit PBs when I wanted to. I hit paces that I needed to if I was just sticking to a pace, and everything's gone well. But by not hitting the target pace I wanted first time in the marathon, I've learned a lot more from it about what happened in training, be able to look back on that, what happened in the race and a plan around there, to be actually to look back and go, okay, you can't just get away with things like I probably have in other races with where prep's not been as optimal. So seeing how that affects me, how I can work around that, and then also just having that desire to want to go again and do more. So I think there was probably a part of me that maybe had I have got either of those two goals of the A one of the 3 hours 45 or the 4 hours for the B goal, that I could quite easily have crossed that finish line and gone, I'm done. And gone, I set out to do this, I did that. So there isn't much of a what next Whereas from having that failure, I have something to go for again and have that determination to get better and work on myself and work on different areas to aid that. I have ran since, not as much as I kind of wanted to, but that's also part of, I have done other sports apart from running. So that first day I was pain-free. I went to my first cricket training session of the season and then into a game that weekend, and that takes a lot off my legs. So it wasn't until probably 2.5 weeks afterwards that I did the first run. I think I've done about 3 or 4 runs now since, along with doing things. So I've played a few games of cricket. I've gone on a few bike rides just to try and mix things up a bit. So I'm not just running, because there was definitely a time before the race where I was wanting to do other stuff rather than just run. But those runs have been a bit tough. I'm probably still carrying a lot of fatigue because I haven't let myself rest properly after the marathon, because I went into other sports pretty much that weekend after, like within a week after, and I feel like I've lost a bit of fitness. But I'd say how much of that is fatigue, how much is actually losing it, I don't know. But yeah, started running again, got a few in, and have very quickly got back to like having the running bug and wanting to go out running. And I think I've had enough time to have the race, reflect on it, and now be ready to go again and ready to push myself and try and work towards that next goal. So running wise, that next goal is looking to October time. It's going back to half marathon. So long-term plan is to go back shorter and then work way back up to distance again. So try and get a bit more speed into workouts over the summer. As towards the end of the training session, those speed sessions dropped off, and I can feel that in the runs that I've done. So it's that short stuff again. The next main goal is half marathon, going again at the Greystone Run, which is the first half marathon I did last year, with an aim of trying to take 5 minutes off my time in that. Then I currently don't have any other races apart from that set in. The provisional thing in my head is to look at a spring marathon again. Which one that will be, I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't decided which one I want to do. I have entered the ballot for London again. I did that the day the ballot opened, so kind of also waiting to see on that. I don't think I'll get a place just because it's so difficult to. But obviously if I can get London again, then that will be that spring marathon and will be the goal again. If we don't get it, then it'll be looking elsewhere. But still not 100% sure. But 100% sure that I'm definitely doing a marathon again next year to try and get that 4 hours, which I think and know I can get. So in the end, I've raised £1,900 for Mind, which I'm so incredibly proud of, incredibly grateful for the people that helped in that and donated money towards it. It really means a lot. It is an incredible amount of money that definitely at one point I thought I'd get nowhere near. So yeah, to get up to that amount, it's so good, and so it really means a lot. Any regrets? I'll probably say no. If you asked me that question a week, 2 weeks after finishing the race, I probably would have said the race plan was a regret. But as I went to earlier, from saying early in the past few days of having that like change in mindset of being able to focus on more about what I can learn from how it went, that although I'm disappointed that I went off that bit too quick early on, and part of my head still goes, well, of course you should have thought about that. You should have taken it in the heat, everything a bit more. And the fact that I sat here before and went, I don't think I've done enough training wise for that A goal. I still don't regret it because of being able to learn from that and having that experience of doing that, making the mistake, and then being able to learn from that. The same with the training, that there's probably more I could have done during the training, and there'll be a slight regret of going, okay, I could have done this, I could have done that session, I could have pushed a bit more, rather than being a bit more worried about injuries and going, okay, I'm not going to push myself too much because my legs hurt. Maybe there's a slight bit of regret there, but again, it's all a bit that at the same time, I don't regret it because I can learn from it and go, okay, I probably can push myself more. I know I didn't do that in training, so I can do that next time, sort of thing. That even though things didn't go well and I'm still annoyed at myself for not doing those things as I should have, at least I can still learn from it. There was also just so many little high points as well. I said that bit before where messages were coming through with good luck. During the race, I had messages coming through my watch of people sending messages. Like, those were all little high points, different parts of the crowd, like at London Bridge or in the last 10K. Like, those were high points. Being able to see everyone afterwards, again, like maybe different levels, different lengths of time that there were high points, but I probably wouldn't say there's one that stands out more than the other. It was just really good to have like almost a continuous thing of high points throughout the entire thing. Thinking back on it is just incredible, and such a like I end up smiling so much thinking about it and talking about it, just because even though it was difficult and I was in so much pain, like I thoroughly enjoyed all 4 hours and 21 minutes of that, even though a large portion of it was being uncomfortable. Like, the entire thing was a huge high point and just felt incredible. But yeah, there's a few it's a bit higher than the others that say pointed out that, yeah, just incredible. I think I have surprised myself, yeah. There was, I said that 7 mile race that I did, even I set out with a plan of trying to hit certain times, and especially with that, that I beat those times that I had in my head by so much, or what is so much to me in like in a running sense, that I was surprised at what I could do and the fitness I get up to so quickly. And I think the same with that month of running 5K every day. I've surprised myself at how resilient I can actually be. That I know for a fact that there'd be so many of those runs that I did under other circumstances or normal circumstances, I wouldn't have ever set foot out the door to do it. I would have given up quite early. So I was surprised at how resilient I can be at actually switching on and staying focused and doing what I said I was going to do. If I went back and spoke to my 13-year-old self, he would not believe it was me. There's no way that I'd think I'd be out running, enjoying running the distances that I'm doing. Even speaking to myself 2-3 years ago, I wouldn't believe that I'd be running the distances and the times that I've been doing. So never mind a 13-year-old said there's absolutely no chance, but believe that I was in the position that I am now. Running for me is something that has really helped with that. It helps relieve my stress. It helps relieve my anxiety. So I think the main thing that I should talk about more and probably haven't and will now is that if you are someone who is struggling with that, then please do go and find help. Find what works for you to relieve that, because it might not be running, it might not be exercise. Talk to someone, use someone like mine to get the help from them, and so find what works for you, because even though it won't seem like it, there will be something and there will be an answer and there is help out there.